Welcome ladies, it's time for StarCraft 2, it's time for Heart of the Swarm. Zerg versus Terran, this is the matchup that we're going to have a closer look at today. And starting on screen to the top left of a kill on flats is currently Coco Channel, or Coco Chanel probably. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. Terran player starting here in red on the map. He's up against the Zerg player to the bottom right. Using a barcode ID from Australia, I give you Moonglade. Moonglade, player that has been around for a long time. This guy is just so good. Probably the best player that they have in Australia right now. He's been to a lot of international tournaments already. He has been staying in Korea for some time, and he has been around for a long time. He's actually been a player in Warcraft 3. Back in the days, he played Night Elf. I admit it's a little bit of a gay race. It was one of the sins of his early life, but he saw the dark light. He switched over to the dark side when he heard that they have cookies. Now he's playing Zerg in StarCraft 2, and this guy is a really strong opponent to face. 26 years old, Andrew Panda. His Twitter account, if you want to follow him or give him a shout out, is Moonglade AU. Make sure to add him. And he is facing a Terran player in this game. For the Zerg, we expect an early hatch, trying to go into a hatch first and then switching it over to the pool. Against Terran, you can kind of always get away with that. Against Protoss, it's a little bit more difficult, since Protoss players like to open up with a Forge these days, and therefore they have the option of cannon rushing you when you don't have Zerglings or Queens out on the map. So you want to be a little bit careful. But let's see what Coco is going to do here. So far it looks like we have a command center first, and there it is, boom, dropping it right away at the 400 mineral marks. And this basically means that Coco is trying to go for a very late game oriented strategy. Probably gonna block here very soon with the barracks. There's already the SCV waiting for the 150 minerals to go for that. And this is a pretty cool build. I really like what he's doing here. This is one of the things that a lot of Terran players won't do. If they go for command center first, most of them will just go down to the natural, drop the command center right here, and leave this ramp wide open. You can do that. It's playing a little bit greedy, trying to gamble a little bit, but the build that we have here from Coco is something that I like a lot more. Having the command center on the low ground, being part of the wall-in, will enable you to fly down. You will be very safe. You lose a little bit of mining time when you fly the command center from the high ground down to the expansion, but still it's a very safe opening. A Zerg player can't do a lot. Even if he starts with an early pool, he won't be able to break through here. So a very nice opening for Coco, and he shows us already that he wants to go into a very late game oriented game, and probably a strategy that evolves around that thought. So, for looking a little bit at what Moonglade does, nothing out of the ordinary. Hatch first for him, bottom right we have him now with his spawning pool, and of course starting into the double queen. So far no gas for him. There are of course a couple of options, a couple of things that he can do. You can either go into the gas now, try to be a little bit aggressive. You can rely on a lot of queens, maybe 4 up to 6, depending on how many bases you want to take. Take that early third if you want to, especially when you scout what's going on. If you see that your opponent is actually going into the command center first, an early third is never a bad idea. You might as well take that third base and try to catch up with the economy of your opponent, or just go and be a little bit aggressive. The scout of course has already been out, but bam, taken out by Moonglade, so no more information here for Coco, but he's seen everything that he wants to see. He knows about the expansion, he knows very well that in the main base of his opponent there's no extractor just yet, so he does not have to be afraid of any kind of early aggression. He can be the one who just now goes for all this SCVs, gets into the work account, gets his tech up as well, so not a lot that he has to be afraid of. Therefore, already the orbital command on the low ground as a direct response to what he just scouted, and he's trying to just build up this wall at the front. And this ramp here is also one of the reasons why Coco decided to get the command center on the high ground and not on the low ground. Because if he gets it on the low ground and wants to wall off this ramp, you can really see that it takes quite a lot of effort. This is a huge area that he has to cover with buildings. So now we have him just trying to do that a little bit later after he scouted what's going on here, which allowed him to go into the 14 command center, but still enabled him just to scout what's going on, be very safe, and then move down to the low ground and start walling off here with a bunker in the middle. For Moonglade, what we have now are the queens that we already mentioned, 4 in total. He has taken double gas in his main base, didn't get the third just yet, so could be a little bit aggressive here and trying to push out. Might go for a roach push, has a lot of options in this scenario, but the extra queens at this point just give him a little bit of safety. So you can use them to spread the creep, get the creep tumors out there. You always want to spread the creep as much as possible so that you have that speed advantage that your Zerg units will get on it. But with Moonglade going now into 6 queens, it looks very unlikely that he's going to go for any kind of roach push aggression, especially since he now has 4 gas. This looks more like he might go into Mutalisks. He's a player who really loves Mutaling, Baneling, and now already takes his 3rd base. With a creep spread fairly far to the 3rd base, he can use the queens to defend against whatever his opponent is throwing against him. And Coco is going into a Medivac first. He's following this up in his main base with Cloak. He's going into Banshees with Cloak, so a little bit of a delayed timing, and that can be very, very strong against Zerg players. If you don't expect it, it might just hit you at the wrong point in time, and then suddenly you lose your economy. But that's also where the Hellions come into play. Coco now starts to be a little bit aggressive. He's on 2 bases, he's getting his 3rd command center. Unfortunately for him, Moonglade already scouts him. Here comes the boost, immediately the speed boost with the Medivacs, trying to get into the mineral line. Here we have the Hellions roasting those drones one after another. This is barbecue time. Those drones don't stand a chance, but Moonglade with a decent split avoided the worst so far. The queens are going in right away, and you can really see that the speed boost for the Medivac helps out quite a bit for Coco. He's able to save all these Hellions, and he's also going into the natural now where he can do additional damage. But at some point you will have to realize that you should rather back off here. Trying to move in though again, sacrificing a few of the Hellions. The Medivac trying to swoop in, but it's already a little bit too late. The Medivac is the only unit that survives here for the Terran player, losing 4 Hellions in total, and let's find out how many workers he killed. 9 overall. This is actually well worth it. We're going into this a little bit later, but let's focus a bit on the Banshee that follows up on the Hellion drop, trying to do a little bit of damage here. Let's find out how much he can actually do. Moving in as we speak, and there's not a lot of detection at this point for Moonglade, and this is really a big problem. He's going into a double Overseer immediately, but he's already lost 5 Harvesters, he's losing another one. All those Queens, they can't do shit in this scenario. They have no choice, they have to wait for the Overseer. Finally the Banshee is being attacked, but 8 kills on the Banshee, mining time stolen here. That is definitely something that was well worth it for the Terran. So far, everything is going Coco's way. That was a really strong opening. He killed in total 17 Harvesters, and he only lost 4 Hellions and 1 Banshee. He also took a lot of mining time off his opponent. The second Banshee is there for, yeah, well, it's definitely something that he can afford to lose, but you want to do a bit of damage. I think that this was probably just the wrong waypoint for Coco. Realizing it a little bit too late, going into Cloak, but then the Overseer is there to grant detection, and the unit goes down. As already mentioned, Moonglade, a player who really likes to go into Zergling, Mutaling, and Baneling, and there we have the Spire trying to go into those Mutalisks. But on the other hand, now on 3 bases, the Terran player goes into a strategy that Moonglade with the Mutalisk might not be able to break. He's going into Mech. We already have him with the double Thor production, which will help out quite a bit against the Mutalisks. A little bit of a sloppy macro here. What you want to do when you build a supply depot is always shift hotkey your SCV back to the mineral line so that you don't have idle workers on the base. Coco currently has a couple of them, so that's something where you should pay attention to. And we should pay attention to the second drop in the main base. Suddenly those Hellions are back, and they are back with a vengeance, trying to take out more of these Harvesters, and as you can see, he was able to kill another 9. So this is really a great strategy so far for Coco. Sorry that we were a little bit late to the party, but you got the end of it. Most of those drones were just roasted. The barbecue continues. Coco really hungry for a little bit of drone meat. Seems to taste quite good. But the Mutalisks are now going in, trying to punish the Terran player. The big problem for Moonglade at this point is really that the missile turrets are already up, and we've seen those Thors earlier. They are already on their way down. Even a Viking landing its shots into this attack. And here we go. The new Seeker missile not ready. We'll talk about that in a second. So far, the Mutalisk didn't do anything. Yeah, Mutalisk. And the Seeker missile, the Hunter Seeker missile that we have here. The thing is, it has been changed a little bit. So what happens right now, you basically start with the Seeker missile and it drops in front of your Raven, and then you have like basically a charge up time. 5 seconds, that's the delay before the Seeker missile will finally just go and hit the target, which is pointed out by the red outlines, so you can always try to get outside of the radius of the Seeker missile, and then you're going to be completely fine. The Seeker missile will just drop, which is exactly what we just saw when Moonglade moved the Mutalisks back. Seeker missiles are a little bit more affordable right now. They cost only 75 energy, so you can cast 2 of them immediately. Have to wait a little bit longer until you have more energy on the Raven, if you're in full energy, and then you can cast the third one. In this game, we have Moonglade now with a little bit of a supply lead. If you just look at how the game went so far, he lost quite a lot of his harvesters, but he still has a very good economy. 70 drones against 74 SCVs, both players trying to opt a little bit for the late game here, but Moonglade wants to be a bit aggressive. He knows that there's going to be a mech transition of his opponent with the Thors that he has already scouted, the Raven also part of this composition, and him going in right now, he really wants to trade here. The Mutalisks are trying to get some shots at the Thors, and all those Roaches, they just don't stand a chance. Moonglade at least sniping 1-2 of those Thors, but the rest he can't deal with that. The Hellbat's really providing a good meat shield here against the Roaches, and the Thors in the back are doing a significant amount of damage, assisted now by a siege tank that's just sieged up. Important in Heart of the Swarm, of course, that siege tanks have the siege mode upgrade right off the bat. It doesn't have to be researched anymore. For Moonglade, on the other hand, we have now a 4-base economy. He added another hatch, and he's going into additional upgrades. If you look at the upgrades that we have in the game, he's already on +2 armor. He's going into the first attack, or he has the first attack upgrade. He will probably start the second one very soon. But our Terran player is also doing a quite decent job, going into Blue Flame Hellions right now, adding those additional upgrades. He's even going for the drilling claws, which enable the Widow Mine to just drill into the ground a little bit faster, so you can actually then use the Widow Mines a little bit more efficient. And Coco is just turtling up. He's turtling on 3 bases, trying to get his economy to a 4th base, but he has to deal with the Overlord first that is spreading creep at the 4th. And the small force that Moonglade tried to send over to the top left, he retreats with it. He realizes, well, I can't really do damage here. This is a very safe position for the Terran player. He's happy to turtle on 3-4 bases on this map, wants to get this mech army out, so Moonglade can't actually do a lot about it at this point. What he tries to do now is to go into a transition. He realized that his preferred style of mutaling scaling doesn't really work against what he's seeing right now. It's a little bit too risky. So he's opting for the Swarmhost. Getting the Locust upgrade here as well so that the range is extended. The Swarmhosts will survive another 10 seconds, which is a total of 25 seconds. That gives them a great range. It's ridiculous. Another drop in the main base. Here come the Hellions once again. Actually, this time he's going for the Hellbats, not the Hellions, but he transformed them already. The Queens are trying to deal with it, but here comes another speed boost, and now he's suddenly in the natural. The Queen is trying her best, but the Hellbat is just doing way too much. One at the natural, the other one at the 3rd base. And Moonglade has a really tough time to defend against all this drop action that is coming out of Coco now. The Terran player taking a supply lead here, also because Moonglade is still saving up some of his minerals and his gas, as I just indicated to the top right. He wants to go into a composition of Swarmhost and adds the additional Hydralisks and also the Roaches. What we will probably also see are Vipers. If you have Viper, Swarmhost, and Hydralisk, you can do quite a lot of damage. He wants to lay siege to the Terran player, realizing it's going to be pretty difficult for him to defeat him otherwise. So now here come the Swarmhost, trying to do that damage, trying to nibble away at the hit points of those units out at the front. Let's see if Moonglade can be successful with this. It also gives him a little bit more map control that he can use to take a 5th base, which we just now see to the top right. But our Terran player has now a very significant army. 120 army supply moving in. Once again, the Seeker missiles are being used, and he's using them against the Swarmhost. The Mech army is moving in and is toasting all those Roaches. The Hellbat's doing a great amount of damage here, and Moonglade is a little bit in trouble. Has to move back here. He is losing quite a lot of his units and is trying to remax immediately. More and more Swarmhosts now for Moonglade. The Zergplayer from Australia really trying to do his best here and never neglecting his macro, using those injects, getting a 5th base, going into the range upgrade now for his Hydralisks, and even adding +3/+3 for his ground units as he reaches Hive Tech and therefore Tier 3. Suddenly also the speed upgrade for the Hydralisks comes into play, which will help him a lot. But we have the Terran player very safe. Now out on the map, trying to defend his bases. Sensor towers have been added, so he knows about potential drop play, about potential Mutalisks. He knows what's going on here. Even with the Widow Mines here in his arsenal, he can do quite a bit and will always force Moonglade to get additional overseers and to be very careful about the way he approaches his opponent. Coco is going into +3/+3 as well. He's actually the one player who will have those upgrades a little bit faster, and this is pretty significant as he plays Mech. A very gas-heavy composition. He can afford it thanks to the 4 bases, and Moonglade is really determined to make this happen somehow. Going in with those units, trying to maybe catch a few of those Thors off guard, and he nearly was able to take this force out, but he can't engage against the siege tanks. There are so many of them, and siege tanks are awesome. They are really, really good against roaches and against hydras, so he has to be very careful here. Nice dodge here. Seeker missile target has been identified by Moonglade, and he moves back immediately, but he has a tough time dealing with this. He wants to buy time. He wants to go into the Greater Spire. Broodlords, that's his weapon of choice against Mech. A really, really good decision here. But at the same time, we now have a fusion core coming up for Coco. He wants to go into Battlecruisers. This is gonna be an epic game, guys. This is gonna be really good. The Terran player now moving forward once again, just a tiny little bit, and even taking another base to the bottom left of the map. Here comes the major battle now, in the middle, in the center. Here come the Swarmhost with all the locusts, but the siege tanks are doing so much damage, sieging up, and suddenly Moonglade in the middle of enemy's fire. So many of his units are already down and dying. He is losing quite a lot here. Moonglade has to retreat once again, trying to reinforce, adding a second spire now to get the double upgrades for his air army. But this is really a tough time that he's having here. He has an awesome creep spread way across the middle of the map, but now the Terran player is slowly edging forward. The whole strategy, the whole idea of Coco was to turtle up on 3 bases, take a 4th, keep it safe, go into Mech, and then take a 5th base, slowly pushing forward. Just defending for as long as it takes to get this army composition that is very, very tough to beat. Moonglade, on the other hand, he's going into a lot of Swarmhosts here, as you can see. 18 in total. He has those spires, he can get Broodlords, he can get Corruptors, and he certainly has the resources to pull this off. The one thing that he's short on is gas, but he still has a lot of bases, and he could saturate those 2 extractors anytime. Should actually do it like really soon. The 5th base and also the 6th base that the Terran player is currently trying to establish, they are the first targets for Moonglade. He's moving in once again, but one of the things that we should not forget here is the transition into Battlecruiser that we will most likely see pretty soon. Here comes the the Seeker missile once again, bam, doing the area of effect damage, but the Queens are ready for the transfuse. Make sure that the damage is not too severe. Vipers are now being added, but once again Seeker missiles, part of what Moonglade has to deal with, and all 3 of them, all 3 Seeker missiles, they hit home, but the Vipers, they are there. Another set of Seeker missiles is trying to lodge on, but this time the units retreat out of the radius, and the Seeker missile just drops dead. Look into the main base. What we currently see for the Terran player are 5 starports in total. And this is very significant. He really wants to go all out on this. Vipers with the adapt, trying to get those siege tanks into range of the Hydralisks. The Swarmhosts are finally in position. Here come the Seeker missiles once again, but at the same time all these locusts are doing a significant amount of damage. They are on 3 upgrades now, as is the rest of Moonglade's army. The Zergplayer from Australia is moving back here, trying to do a little bit of damage with the locusts, but the Terran player is still quite safe. Resources lost are still very much the same here, as you can see, 13,000 against 14,000, but let's not forget that we have now a pretty epic transition here for the Terran player. Going in the main base now into 5 starports in total. This guy wants to go all out on the Battlecruisers. 3 are being built, he's going for the Abanto cannons, and we have him already with the upgrades for air. Moonglade, he doesn't know about that. He has no idea at this point. He's completely clueless. He thinks that he is still dealing with the Terran player that goes into a ground mech army, but his opponent has other plans. Adding now additional command centers. For once he can use them as planetary fortress, which is exactly what we see in the middle of the map. Double planetary, that's what he attempts. Has a few siege tanks to guard them and also missile turrets. And at the same time, to the bottom left now, we already have this planetary that he established a little bit earlier. So a lot of points in this game where he can be very defensive. Hellions now on their way, trying to go to the top right. 1 Widow Mine has already been active here, but the Blue Flame Hellions, they come in, they try to do damage to the economy of Moonglade once again. He has a lot of resources, 7,500 minerals, 2,000 gas, maxed out. This is quite the game. Broodlords are also now in in the match. We have him with Broodlings, with Locusts, all those free units that you have as a Zerg player trying to deal with this mech composition that we see here for Coco. And by now Coco revealed what he's doing. He's shown those Battlecruisers. He's shown to Moonglade what he's up to, and Moonglade is looking at this is like, well, I better get more and more air upgrades. He's going into armor, he's going into attack upgrades, but here come again the Seeker missiles trying to do damage to the air force of Moonglade, and BAM! Oh my god, those Corruptors, they certainly took a beating there. This is really tough now for Moonglade. The composition between Battlecruisers and also the Ravens is very tough to beat, especially when your opponent is using a few Thors on the low ground that can do the splash damage to clustered up armies. So this is really something where Moonglade has to look at the game and be like, okay, well, how do I beat this? Upgrades first of all. I need air upgrades, I need Corruptors, I need to have something against this army, and this is exactly what he's now trying to do. He's going into Hydralisk, he's going into those upgrades that we talked about, and also adding an Ultralisk cannon that will help him to deal with the ground forces a lot better. Also very effective, of course, against those planetary fortresses that Coco is now setting up, not only in the middle of the map, but basically everywhere. Planetary fortresses all over the place, and Moonglade trying to find an angle where he can hit Coco, where he can do damage. He still has a lot of the map covered in creep and has a lot of bases, but he needs to be careful against the Blue Flame Hellions. Here comes Coco once again, realizes now that there's another base being established by Moonglade, and goes in with the Blue Flame Hellions, toasting those drones one after another. In total, he took down 55 already over the course of this game against 17 SCVs that Moonglade was able to take out. Right now, resources lost, both nearing the 20,000 mark, but we can already see that Coco is really investing hardcore into Battlecruisers. He's building another 2, he already has 6, he's going to the +3 attack upgrade, and of course Moonglade doesn't fall short here. He's going straight into +3 attack for his air units, he's going into the armor upgrades, and still utilizing those Locusts and the Swarmhost in general against this very defensive position of Coco. So this is a little bit of a slugfest at this point. Always Moonglade trying to move in and do damage, and Coco trying to find an opportunity where he can defend, where he can encounter this army, go in with the Seeker missiles, and later on, of course, also use the Yamato cannon. And this might be exactly the time in the game where he decides to move out. He's having a quick look what's going on here, sees all those Hydralisks, scans ahead, sees of course also the Swarmhost, and realizes he has to do something. If he waits too long, the Swarmhost will slowly but steadily take down his planetary fortress and kill the rest of his army, and this is exactly what happens here. The first planetary is already down. Coco has to move out, waiting for those 2 additional Battlecruisers. Now suddenly he commands 8 of them. He still has the Vikings, and he's moving in, using the Yamato cannons against his opponent's Hydralisks, and here we go. The rest of the army is moving in as we speak. Here come those Ravens, where the Seeker missiles, the Battlecruisers on their own already dealing quite well with the Hydras. All of them are just gone, as Moonglade lost 50 supply in the blink of an eye, and Coco is still fighting hard with all these Battlecruisers that even survived this heated up battle. So now suddenly the Terran player in a very dominant position here, getting base after base, making sure that he does not fall short on economy, and having a very strong army here that is very tough to beat for Moonglade, who now decides that it's time to go into a lot more Hydralisks, adding another 30. He needs anti-air here, and he does not really want to commit to Corruptors at this point. He's going for the 3-3 upgraded Hydralisk that can do quite a lot here. Catches a few of those Widow Mines of guard that we just barely saw at the end of the screen. Wants to make sure that they can't get into his mineral lines. The Terran player always attempting to take down a few of those drones, making sure that the economy of Moonglade stays as low as possible. But by now the Zerg player already has nearly 9,000 minerals and 5,000 rats. He will be able to remax quite easily, that's a given. But at the same time, this is very tough to beat, as I've pointed out several times already in this game, so he needs to somehow trade with his opponent. The one thing that Coco could really do here is repair the Battlecruiser, something that he did not try to do just yet. Calls down the mules, can repair the planetary fortress, and should also try to repair the Battlecruisers. That would definitely be well worth it in this fight. Here come those Hydralisks once again though. The Battlecruisers could go for the Yamato cannon. Where are those Ravens to lend their strength and the Seeker missiles to the fight? A little bit farther to the back. Here come all those workers trying to repair, and also now heading onto the Battlecruisers, trying to make sure that they are on full health again. Both of them really a little bit reluctant to overly commit to a fight, but Moonglade decides that it's just that it's just not worth it to face this army head on. He wants to sneak past his opponent's forces and maybe take it down another base. But in the middle of the map now, again, those locusts are giving Coco a tough time. This is the strength of the Swarmhost, just being very positional, staying outside of the range of the opponent's army, and then just using the locusts with the 25 seconds duration to send them halfway across the map and take down units slowly but steadily, lay siege to the opponent. Moonglade really trying to take down this planetary here, but all those SCVs, there were just way too many of them. He repairs and the planetary survives. The Hydralisks have to back off again, and this is of course a huge blow to Moonglade at this point. He can't afford to lose all these Hydralisks. Yes, he has a lot of resources, but this game is going to drag on for a lot longer, and if he loses army like this, he cannot continuously replace it. This is just not going to work against an opponent who commands such a tough composition. But now we all not only have the Hydralisk, but there come also the Swarmhosts into play, trying to do what could not be done earlier. And this is already the point in the game where Coco, with a scan, realizes that he has to do something. But he's going for a base trade. He wants to go to the right. He already took down one base of Moonglade here at the top center, and while Moonglade is attempting to kill the planetary at the bottom left, his opponent just moves in to the top right and takes down base after base. Both of them really trying to utilize the strength of their army to take down bases and to just starve the opponent. All those battlecruisers tough to deal with, and Moonglade, he's moving into those command centers and all those bases that we have on the map now for Coco, trying to make that happen somehow. But he's also moving into the range of these siege tanks, and this is a little bit difficult for him to pull off, but thanks to the locusts, he will eventually be able to break through. At the same time, the Terran player is now killing base after base, going to the right side of the map, taking down a few of the old overlords, trying to supply block Moonglade as well, and that's exactly what happens here. Moonglade is supply blocked, he can't get any additional units out there anymore. But now, with another move to the bottom center of the map, maybe the last mining base of Moonglade will also be eliminated. He still has a nice vent that he can use, but this is... it's still something that you have to be really careful about. The Locust to the left side of the map taking down the supply depots right now. He will also be able to supply block his opponent quite soon, but Moonglade just lost the last mining base. And this is just both of them going for the attack, trying to be as aggressive as possible. The Battlecruiser count went up to 10, and in army size in general, we now have the Terran player a little bit ahead with 156 against 130. Now he actually starts to split his army here, a decision that I can't really understand. There they are, the Ravens. There are a lot of Vikings right now, but the Corruptors that Moonglade by now built to take down the Air Force, they are still there. Of course, they don't want to fight in the range of a point defense drone. A few Berserker missiles have been used, but this is still a little bit scary. All those Ravens, that's something that you should not leave alone, even with such a strong Viking force. Here come those Corruptors moving in once again, taking down the Vikings, and the Ravens, they have to be careful. While at the same time we now have Moonglade suddenly in a position where he lost most of his ground army. The army supply for the Zergplayer is down to 90 against 143. Those Battlecruisers giving him a very tough time. And here come those Ravens rolling right into the range of the Hydralisk, and this is awful for Coco. He doesn't have the resources anymore, as you can see. He only has like 300 minerals and 1,000 gas. He cannot build a lot. There's no mining going on for him anymore. He has a few mineral patches left, and it's natural, but this is still a position where he can't afford to lose those Ravens. They are crucial for his composition. If you are dealing with a Zerg player that tries to go into Corruptor, you need the point defense drones. You want to have at least a few Seeker missiles to do this area of effect damage and always try to zone out your opponent. So him losing the Ravens, this is a huge blow. He's trying to go into Thors right now, and Thors make a lot of sense. We talked a little bit about the clustered up units and the area of effect damage, the small area of effect that Thors deal. So as long as the Corruptors stay in one spot, the Thors are a great addition to the army composition. But losing those Ravens, that was really crucial. And Moonglade, even though he's down in army supply, he's still now in a position where he could take this game. Corruption is going to be very essential in the next fight. He has to use this skill, and he's moving in, and there's Corruption. Immediately he's trying to focus on all those Battlecruisers. The Battlecruiser with the Yamato cannon trying to take down the Corruptors as fast as they can. The Thors are not even here yet. A few of them are, but not all of them. And here go the Battlecruisers. One by one they die to the might of Moonglade's Air Force. This is just too much. The big problem for Moonglade really is that he doesn't have a lot of ground forces at this point. Yes, he won the air fight, but all those Corruptors, they can't do a lot. he could try to switch now into Broodlords, and that's exactly what he does. He's going into 3 Broodlords as we speak. Is a little bit short on the gas at this point in time, but he also has a few units available on the ground. He has a couple of Hydralisks, and he also still has a few, not a lot of them, but still a few Swarmhosts available, trying to take down this army, and Moonglade is really pushing Coco's buttons at this point. The Terran player is just losing way too much. The Ravens, I still can't believe they lost those. Splitting up the army was, in my opinion, really a bit of a mistake. In the heat of the battle, definitely something that it can happen, but that was maybe what put him into this spot. He could have done so much more in the last big fight with a few point defense drones and also, of course, with the Seeker missiles. Now he's in a position where he's up against Swarmhosts and he's up against Broodlords. Can he really deal with that? One Raven, in my opinion, not gonna be enough. Here come those Broodlords doing damage. The point defense drone, yes, it helps out a little bit, but against the Broodlings and the Locusts, I don't think that he can really do anything here. Once again, corruption being used and Coco is losing ground. Those Locusts, they are just way too much for him to handle. Coco with a great game, but now he's on the back foot. He's the one who has to retreat here, trying to go for a couple of Widow Mines. But they don't change the course of the battle anymore, the course of the game. There is just way too much damage output for Moonglade, and also the composition working in favor of the Zergplayer. The space to the bottom left is the lifeline of Coco. It's his last straw. He's trying to make it work, but the Hydralisks, they are already there, and the command center doesn't stand a chance. The siege tanks moving in once again. The Raven against the Corruptors, completely helpless, and now the few Thors that are still in the game are being assailed immediately by the Hydralisks and those Broodlords. Coco is losing everything here. He's losing the tanks, he's losing the Thors, he already lost his economy. He's going down to 50 supply and he will lose this game. Moonglade, for a long time in this match, he looked like he could not turn things around, like the composition would be too much for him to deal with. But then Coco, low on resources, lost his Ravens, has to type GG and leave the game. What a crazy match. 10 Battlecruisers in total. A really epic conclusion if you think about it. Just a small mistake by Coco, splitting his units up, losing those Ravens on the way back, flying over the Hydralisks, and then suddenly he can't utilize those important abilities of the Raven in the last battle. The Battlecruisers alone were just not enough. They could have done so much more with the cover of point defense drones against the Corruptors. A pretty strong game by Coco, also by Moonglade. 52 against 55,000 resources lost for both of them. But in the end, it's the Australian Zergplayer who takes the game, who has enough patience in this match to turn things around, utilizing the bank that he acquired within the first half of the game. So pretty cool match. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And I will definitely make sure that I will upload a few additional videos to the channel very soon. If you haven't subscribed yet, of course, subscribe to Khaldor TV on YouTube. And I see you guys next time with another Heart of the Swarm match.